Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. I am Pat from Pat's Path Predictor, and basically the enhanced risk that was just in Alabama and Georgia yesterday has now been expanded all the way up to Virginia. So we're going to go ahead and dive right all into this and explain the situation. Alright, so this is what we have right here. There is a massive enhanced risk from Richmond, Virginia down to I'm not sure how to pronounce that city down there, but yeah, it includes the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, Virginia Beach, Atlanta, Raleigh, and Norfolk. So this is the area that enhanced risk. The slight risk goes from New Orleans all the way up towards further into Virginia, as well as in parts of the Carolinas and Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, actually. The marginal risk goes all the way up from Tampa to Wilmington, and once again from Louisiana all the way up to Washington, D.C. So we're looking at potentially a pretty neat severe weather outbreak right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the risks for you. The tornado threat, there's only two concentrated areas right here. The first concentrated area is at 10% in parts of Alabama and Georgia. The second concentrated area is in North Carolina and Virginia right here, near Virginia Beach right there. So it's basically the tornado threat. The 5% is in the slight risk area, and the 2% is basically not in the marginal risk area, but it is in the rest of the slight risk. So that's what's going on. The wind threat right here is basically where the enhanced risk is. That's why they upped it up so much, because the wind threat's going to be is now up to 30%, which means there's 30% risk of severe winds within 25 miles of a point. The hail threat hasn't been upped. It has been upped, so it's generally going to be more primarily of a wind threat than anything. But the hail threat encompasses the slight and enhanced risk area for parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina right here. And that means right here we have a 15% risk of hail of 1 inch diameter or more within 25 miles of a point. So that's basically what we have right here. So yeah, they expanded the enhanced risk because it used to be in just Alabama and Georgia. And then I said they might expand the risk. Well, my prediction was right. They did happen to expand it, and they expanded it by a large area. So that's what's going on. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the summary and the synopsis. There's an enhanced risk of severe storms for parts of eastern Alabama to portions of southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. Summary: scattered severe thunderstorms are expected across parts of the southeast to Ohio Valley and Tidewater region today. Damaging winds, hail, and a few tornadoes will be possible, with the primary threat expected to be late in the morning and early evening. Synopsis: a strongly progressive upper air pattern will continue through the period over the continental United States, the main feature pertinent to severe thunderstorms potential to being the cyclone now centered over the Ozarks. The associated 500 millibar low is expected to move approximately east-northeastward into the lower Ohio Valley to the area between the EVV and CVG by 0Z, with the trough southward over the Florida Panhandle, associated with the mid to upper cyclonic flow over most of the continental United States, east of the southern plains and south of the Great Lakes. By 12Z, which is about 7 a.m., the center will decelerate and reach the Great Lakes in to the northeast Gulf. Otherwise, the height falls aloft are expected to over parts of the interior Northwest and Northern Rockies region, ahead of a strong shortwave trough moving inland from the Pacific. Associated shots of DCVA destabilization aloft over weak but adequate mid to low level moisture will support general thunderstorm potential. So basically, this is just the setup of what's powering these storms right here. There's a mid latitude cyclone that's powering these storms. So I just wanted to give that context right there. At 11C, the surface analysis showed the primary low over extreme southeastern Missouri, with a cold front southward along the mid-south and central Louisiana. A wavy warm was drawn from the Atlantic east of the Outer Banks across extreme southern North Carolina near ILM, central South Carolina, northeast Georgia, eastern portions of Kentucky and Tennessee, and to the lower Ohio Valley and the lower Ohio Valley. The low should migrate eastward near the HTS by 0Z, with cold front associated with western parts of Virginia and the Carolinas, Georgia, southern Alabama, southern Louisiana. The warm front should reach the southern Delmarva Peninsula and the southern central Virginia by 0Z, then decelerate with a low developing thorough in the South Chesapeake Bay region by 12Z. By then, the cold front should extend to the low front of the Outer Banks in northern Florida. The specific cold frontal position of through this afternoon and overnight, especially over the Gulf Coast states, may be rendered marginally not relevant because of the prefrontal convective stabilization, that has made southwestern parts of the forecast more complex and conditional with time. However, colder air aloft further north along the northern parts of the outlook areas may compensate for weaker boundary layer theta E enough to maintain at least a marginal severe threat. So that's basically all the technical stuff right there. So basically, it's just talking about the setup of the storms and everything. So that's basically all that was. It's talking about what's driving this. Like the low is going to be moving into the Mid-Atlantic, and that's basically what's driving these potentially severe thunderstorms. So now we're going to get to the good stuff, talking about the storms themselves. The southern continental United States and Ohio Valley to Tidewater. Scattered to locally numerous thunderstorms are expected through this evening, shifting eastward to northeastward along the region in the form of mixed modes, quasi-linear, cluster multicellular, and probably a few discrete supercells. Damaging gusts, at least a few tornadoes, and sporadic large hail are still possible, with damaging to severe gusts being the most common type of report expected. So that's basically some of the threats right there. A large area of severe thunderstorm potential exists, though more uncertain now that on the southwest side. That part of the outlook is complicated by a long-living quasi-linear convective system, or QLCS for short, now weakening across parts of southwestern Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, leaving behind a substantial theta E deficit over parts of Alabama and most of Mississippi. Though now weakening, this activity has progressed across the region faster and or better organized than almost all synoptic and convective allowing guidance has suggested from the zero-Z initializations right to the past few hours. For example, the HRRR overnight consistently have been unable to keep up with reality in terms of being too slow with the convective speed and too fast with the discrete dissipate of the complex. The few progs that have maintained a better organized squall line, the zero-Z high-rise FV3 cam, still were a few hours too slow with convective translation, but in planar thermal buoyancy guidance more reasonably indicate that the stabilizing effects of the wake-cool period and spidily adjusted eastward. So basically, there's this line of thunderstorms that's moving through much of the deep south that is both stronger and moving slow dissipating slower than almost all of the models had expected. So that might be robbing some of that instability right there. That might be absorbing some of that cape as well as some of that moisture, and the severe storms may not fire off in those areas. So that's what that's talking about. Favorable destabilization in the outflow boundary which arcs well southwestward offshore from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and the cold front now appears more uncertain, though some potential still exists for either. One, strong severe convection to form along and ahead of the cold front at some ill-defined southern rim and of the favorable large-scale lift cooling aloft related to the cyclone, but in a moist layer that is weaker and shallower than earlier expected. And two, the outflow boundary may weaken enough to this thing just updated for prefrontal low-level return flow, especially above the surface, to result in favorable theta E advection, especially into the near coastal southeastern Louisiana, into western Panhandle corridors closest to the remnant boundary. Given the uncertainties and the reasonable lack of substantial / organized activity over the coastal plain behind the MCS and progs that show it better, unconditional severe weather probabilities accordingly have been reduced but not eliminated for much of the post-convective area. Further refinements are likely in the region as mesoscale trends in later, more reliable guidance warrants. Otherwise, the forecast remains largely in the same further north into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley regions, where the influence of stronger cooling and instability aloft will be more important to the convective potential. And two, over the eastern lobe of the outlook, encompassing parts of eastern Alabama and Georgia to the Tidewater area, where the weakened MCS will be less to negligibility negligibly influential on destabilization from both diurnal and diabetic and the advection processes. The Cape/shear parameter space, especially near the warm front, will be where enlarged hydrographs are probable. Still is expected to favor supercells with relatively maxima tornado probability for both away from the more strongly destabilized areas of the morning cold pool and over the Virginia, North Carolina, Piedmont eastward. So basically, this is why they issued the enhanced risk right here, because there's that risk for potentially bad severe weather. This looks like it's going to be more of a wind-driven threat, but the threat for tornadoes cannot be ruled out. So let's actually take a look at the Cape and the HER model that's recently been out. So the Cape actually is pretty scattered between basically between 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500 in some areas. So yeah, and that Cape actually goes down. So yeah, it's more concentrated by around 16Z, which is about 11 a.m. and that will actually be noon Eastern time. So yeah, I've been doing Central Time so much in the last few in a lot of videos that it's kind of hard to switch back and forth. But nevertheless, let's continue. So that's basically, there's a scattered Cape right here. Let's actually go ahead and look at the dew point temperatures right here. They're in the upper to high 60s in parts of the Carolinas and Virginia. I want to take a look at the deep south as well. Yeah, the dew point's also there for parts of Alabama and Georgia, as well as even to South Carolina as well. So we're not ruling out any severe severe weather in this area. It's just in this area of Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee where that QLCS continues to develop. So that's basically it. The temperature. The temperature by the coast is going to be in the 90s, so that's what's going to be on. In Florida, it's going to be in the mid 90s, and especially near Miami. So that's an interesting development. But in the area of severe weather, it looks like the general consensus is in the 80s. Upper 70s in parts of Virginia, North Carolina, into the mid to upper 80s in parts of the other areas. So that's basically what's going on. Let's take a look at the relative humidity. It's actually kind of dry in South Carolina, but the amount of moisture there is right here, there's 100% humidity right here. The amount of moisture there is right here, that's going to be more than enough for these storms to fire off. So that's basically the situation we have right here. And with that being said, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps me out and helps me make more videos like these. My goal on this channel is to get people more involved in weather and inform them about severe weather hazards like these. And with that being said, guys, have a wonderful day. If you're in that enhanced risk area, stay safe.